Hey everyone, this is Chris recording Tuesday, November 4th at around 9 a.m. your time, 11 a.m. my time. Apologies for getting this lecture out a little bit late. 'Tis the season, I'm telling you. So let's go ahead and dive right in. I'm going to share my screen here and we'll get started. Right, let me get into slideshow. Cool. Welcome to week 12, where we are going to be talking about crisis intervention. So for check-in today, I wanted us to do a shakeout exercise, which I've done in theater a bunch. So bear with me. I'm obviously in my office, so I'm gonna be a little quiet, but you should be able to see what I'm doing. So essentially, you're gonna go like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Then you move to your right foot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then your left foot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And you do that as quick as you can. And then you count backwards from 8. So it'll go like 8, 8, 8, 8, 8, 7, 7, 7, 7. And you're supposed to do it super fast. So this is just to kind of get you in your body, get you loosened up, get you energized, okay? So yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. And usually by the end of it, folks are laughing because it's kind of ridiculous. And some people lose count, like me. But yeah, now I feel a little more energized. I don't know about y'all. Um, you can also adapt that. So, like if folks aren't able to stand or do that standing, you can do it like halftime, or you can just do it from your chair with just the arms. Um, so yeah, hopefully that was energizing. I know I'm feeling a little out of it. Give me a second here. Cool. So, general reminders, keep doing your weekly assignments and activities. There's no class the 24th of this month through the 30th. That's your fall break for Thanksgiving. And then we'll come back for 1 week after that, which I know feels super weird. um, a reminder that your skills demonstration, the recorded session, is due November 10th, so Monday, November 10th by 11:59 p.m. Your time, not my time. And it's a 10 to 12-minute recording. Ideally, if you can record so that both you and the other individual are on the screen. I actually just had a student email me about that. That's why I recommend you test the recording before going through and recording the session, because it ended up hopping between them and like the client and the therapist. And so the ideal situation is that we can see both of you the entire time, just so that we can gauge like nonverbal reactions and things like that. That way you just get more comprehensive feedback. So definitely test ahead of time, even if it's just like give yourself an extra 10 minutes at the beginning, and then record a little bit of it, hop off, see how the recording pops up, make sure the audio is good to go, and then go ahead and, hop back on and do the recording itself. That way you just know how it's set up. Um, don't forget that you also have to do the self-assessment piece of that, the skills checklist. So you'll fill out that blank template yourself. And then you need to include a transcript with your words. Dr. Perry provided an example of that. And so that will be in the, that's in the like assignment examples uh, uh, page in the modules there. And then if you are if your client is like a non-MSU student, then you do also need to include that consent form. Okay. Feel free to reach out to me with any questions you have. I know I've been pretty uh like flexible with assignments and things. I just want to make sure that y'all get these in so that I can give you the comprehensive feedback that I want to. I'm actually taking the day off after, so I'm taking November 11th off so I can start diving into these videos and giving y'all some good feedback. Um, the final optional Zoom meeting to discuss the final paper or project or video is this coming Monday at 9 a.m. your time, 11 a.m. my time. And there is an optional makeup assignment if y'all would like to regain some points or had some weird attendance stuff. You can also go back and just retake whatever part is missing. So double check your grade books too, or your assignments there. And I can also reach out to if stuff is coming up a little bit wonky. So today we're going to be talking about crisis intervention. First, I'm going to talk about self-care around this week in particular with the heavy stuff that we're going to be kind of talking about. We're going to talk about different types of crisis, some strategies to, address and work within and with crisis, limits to confidentiality, mandated reporting, the red flag laws in Colorado specifically. So if you're not in Colorado, you'll want to double check your state's laws as far as if there are any types of red flag. And we can get into that, but documentation around crisis and proactive safety planning. So this week in particular, we're going to be discussing crisis situations, including abuse, neglect, and violence. Please take breaks if you need to, knowing that as a social worker, you will sometimes be exposed to traumatic stories and sometimes traumatic events. Plan to take care of yourself before, during, and after you engage with this week's material, including this video. And yeah, like just all the different materials you're going to be encountering this week. And just take extra special care of yourself. Like just make sure that you're aware of what's coming up, if anything. Yeah, just notice without judgment. Notice without judgment. Okay. So crisis, what is crisis? It can be activated by anything. It can be triggered. It can be something small, like the straw that breaks the camel's back. The person, like the client, will usually say that they are in crisis. Things like, I don't know what to think, I don't know what to do, I need help. They'll have like observable dysregulation, like shaking, crying, yelling, uh, being confused or presenting as confused or scattered. Sometimes they'll be incoherent. And this is why it's really good to have a baseline with your clients because, whoever you're working with, this is like not the norm for them. So if you have like a long-term therapeutic relationship with somebody, or even if it's just, being a case manager in the community and you just know some people, you can pick up on those kinds of changes in behavior. They'll also talk about urgency, like I need help now, like I don't know what to do, and like I can't, like I need right now. So there are some different types of crises. Suicidal crisis, so we're looking at actions, so looking for a way to kill oneself, um, increased substance use or misuse, uh, increased risk-taking behaviors like driving while under the influence, or driving fast, isolating oneself, rage, seeking revenge, extreme mood swings can be an indicator, um, loss of interest, visiting people, saying goodbye, giving away stuff, making arrangements for after death. The words that sometimes you can hear are like, I feel hopeless, I feel helpless, I don't really have a reason to live, I feel trapped, I'm in unbearable pain, I feel like I'm a burden to others, or just like this preoccupation with death that doesn't kind of make sense with their situation. Like they just lost somebody, or had a major health concern or an accident. I think, I mean, just based on, the work that I've done, it seems though as though most people go through a time in their life where they are passively suicidal, where they just think about, oh gosh, it would just be so much easier if I was dead, or like I wish I didn't have to deal with this stuff. Like, it would just be so much easier, or, it would just solve all my problems, right? Um, that's like there's a way of documenting passive suicidality. And that's not as much a concern as like active suicidality. So SI stands for suicidal ideation. Uh, Active suicidality is when you have plans and you have the means to execute those plans. So if you have a firearm in the home, if you have, knives or pills, like if folks are saving those things, or, um, you know, have thought through a plan. Like passive, they might have some ideas of things, but aren't actually like planning on going through with it. Um, Active suicidality is like I intend to harm myself, and this is how I'm planning on doing it. So that's why if you see like the suicide scale that I think we've included in this week's module, it's very much about like, do you have a plan? What are the plans? Do you have the means to do this? Do you intend on carrying it out? Um, I also wanted to mention in this, some folks are really disturbed by self-harm behaviors. Self-harm doesn't necessarily indicate that the client or the person in front of you has suicidal ideation or is even like passive or actively suicidal. Um, People self-harm for various reasons, but especially in like young adults, it can be like a source of control when you feel like you don't have a lot of control, especially with if harm is being done to them, or if there is no kind of sense of safety, or there's been a lot of change that can give them a sense of control, but it does release endorphins, so it can become kind of addictive in that way. There are other ways to feel, like to express the feelings that self-harm behaviors like burning oneself, cutting oneself, bruising oneself. There are, other means as well, but holding ice cubes is a good one. The rubber band thing where you just wear a rubber band like a bracelet and snap it, like if you're feeling the urge. Also, if you get like a red marker, you can just like red marker it, just to kind of express the feeling and all of that. But I just wanted to differentiate that between self-harm, because I think some folks who are in the field who haven't encountered self-harm behaviors before tend to lean directly into, oh, this is an emergency, this is a crisis. And parents can definitely feel that way too. Um, but it's not necessarily like we need to get them inpatient right away. It might be something different. It's not necessarily a crisis. It's definitely disturbing, and it can be very disturbing to help somebody who's going through that, or to be a parent who has a child who's going through that. But suicidal crisis is different than like self-harm. Um, they're not necessarily like the Venn diagram isn't necessarily the two circles overlap, fully, if that makes sense. Homicidal crisis. There's been lots of research on domestic violence. We don't need to kind of go into that here. I do have an additional resource linked here. It's an hour-long documentary from Real Stories. It's on YouTube. Um, Warning signs of homicidal crisis or homicidal ideation, so HI, would be like flashing weapons, uh, reports of past physical assault towards self or others, damaging property, intimidation, harassing, stalking, undue focus, aggressive posturing, verbal abuse, threats that are either verbal or written, me versus them and displays of rage. This is from the Department of Labor, so that website is linked as well. I've not encountered anybody with homicidal ideation, at least not yet in my practice, or that they've admitted. A lot of folks who have encountered systems before know how to answer the PHQ-9 and like the Columbia Suicide Rating Scale, so that they don't get, you know, impatient, or so that they don't raise those red flags. It's People will joke about, wishing other people were dead, that kind of thing. This is more about like if they actively intend to harm somebody and if they have access. So kind of like suicidal ideation on that end of like, do you have plans? Who do you plan on harming? And in what way? So like if they're starting to actually get to that point of saying exactly what they're going to do and how they're going to do it, that is definitely a homicidal crisis. So strategies, we talked about solution-focused therapy. Crisis is about getting to the other side of this moment in time. So solution-focused perspective and stance is the key. If you haven't already established rapport, build it and build it quick. You can conduct a brief psychosocial, protective, and risk assessment. Determine whether a report needs to be made, which we'll be talking about shortly. You want to try to identify any triggers or precipitants of the crisis, like, did a former partner who was abusive come back into the picture or reach out in a way that was unexpected, or, did a person lose their job? Those kinds of things. You want to explore their feelings, thoughts, and other reactions, and engage in collaborative problem solving. So especially with the client, with the person in front of you, with the person in crisis, you want them to be a partner with you in determining what next steps are. Like what's worked in the past, you know, uh, what worked well, what didn't work, what is your ideal situation? Not to go inpatient, okay, that means XYZ, right? You want to create a safety plan. There are links later in this slide. And there are also some examples as well, I think, in the modules for this week. Implement an action plan to restore functioning. So again, this is about getting to the other side of this moment. The action plan could be to check in with a family member or spouse once an hour via text message, or the action plan can be to go like to attend bi-weekly sessions. So like twice a week we're going to do our sessions, and then in between those days, like having a plan to do some self-care or those kinds of things. You're also going to want to plan follow-up and booster sessions. So just again, ways to support them that are going to be most beneficial, and supportive, as opposed to kind of reinforcing their like crises, if that makes sense. Nope. So limits to confidentiality. I know we went over mandated reporting. I think it was, gosh, even first or second week or something like that in the ethics corner. The mandated reporting and duty to warn or protect necessitate breaking confidentiality. Those are the only times, really, apart from consultation. So if we're asking our supervisor or a peer that is a trusted peer or colleague, for advice about what to do in the situation, or for next steps, or to discuss what happened and how to better, approach situations like this next time. Also, if there's a medical emergency, suicidal ideation and homicidal ideation are medical emergencies. Grievances, so if somebody has a complaint out against you, or when you're consulting an attorney, or if you have a subpoena. So those are the things to kind of mention in your, like when you're first onboarding a client. Again, I linked something that Perry did in the ethics corner for this week. So you can take a look at that. It's from a while back. I think it's from like 2018, but the way they present the kind of disclosure and when we would break, our confidentiality, I think really sets it up well. Um, and also, like, we're never going to go behind your back, right? There are some people that will report kind of every little thing, and that can be helpful, but also can break therapeutic alliance and trust that was built. And so if it's done together with reasoning and logic and in support of the client, and you are able to get their buy-in to calling together, that can be so much more helpful and beneficial than someone calling crisis and not telling the person, and then them just getting kind of carted away. It can actually re-traumatize and create new trauma if we don't actively collaborate and engage with our clients when we're having to break confidentiality. Obviously, like if it's a legal thing, that's something separate. But so mandatory reporting with children. If we suspect abuse or neglect, or if we hear the child speak of abuse and neglect of another child or like at-risk adult or elder, we do need to report those. So federal law states that any recent act or failure to act on the part of a parent or caretaker that results in death, serious physical or emotional harm, sexual abuse or exploitation or an act of or failure to act that presents an imminent risk of serious harm. So we're talking physical, emotional, sexual, or institutional abuse, neglect, and child sex and labor trafficking. You can call the statewide hotline. Again, this is if you're in Colorado. And then there's a link with mandatory reporters, like a list of who all is considered a mandatory reporter, which we are. So mandatory reporting for adults is physical abuse, sexual abuse, caretaker neglect, and exploitation, which is termed mistreatment, that is observed or that the reporter becomes aware of when that mistreatment is occurring to an at-risk elder, so 70 years or older, or an at-risk adult with an intellectual or developmental disability, so 18 years or older. You're going to want to contact law enforcement where the mistreatment occurred within 24 hours of witnessing or becoming aware of the mistreatment. So I think I mentioned to y'all that I used to work in banking. Financial exploitation is a big one. Elders who have a family member coming in and withdrawing large amounts of money, or where the older adult feels like they're pressured into providing financial compensation for care, for being given some care. It it can be pretty devastating, and it can obviously wipe out somebody's finances. But keeping your eyes and ears open, and if there's something that feels off, trust your instincts and just do what you can. Let's see here. So the duty to warn and protect, I'm just moving my face over here now. So mental health providers are mandated to warn or protect a specific person or persons, including those identifiable by their association with a specific location or entity, against the violent behavior of a person receiving treatment from the mental health provider when the provider's client has communicated a serious threat of imminent physical violence against such persons or entity. So, for example, if somebody threatens violence against, AT&T because of their, poor service or something like that, and I don't have AT&T, so I don't know, but and they have like the business location and the name of the person that they're coming for. Like we have a duty to warn that person and also the company. So a mental health provider in this instance is a physician, social workers, psychiatric nurses, psychologists, or other mental health professionals, or a mental health hospital, community mental health center, or clinic, institution, or their staff. So there's a wide net that this casts. There are different, professions and persons who are required to report as well. You contact law enforcement, local law enforcement for homicidality, and you call for a wellness check or 911 for suicidality. Okay. So if we have somebody who is, um, like you see one of your colleagues acting unethically or illegally, they're, performing actions that are icky, um, where there's the power dynamic that's off, right? So unethical or illegal actions taken by people in positions of trust. You're going to want to file a grievance with DORA. So the Department of, oh goodness. Ugh. I know it's Colorado's uh, reporting system for like professionals. So if they're registered with DORA, file a grievance. Um, the most common substantiated ethics violations for the NASW or for social workers in particular is um, commitment to clients, uh, conflicts of interest, privacy and confidentiality, having a dual relationship and like a sexual relationship, unethical conduct of colleagues, client records being mishandled, dishonest fraud or deception in their practice or their capabilities, and then misrepresentation. Do I need to make a report? um, Collaborate. Ask your client, talk to your client about this, make them an engaged partner in their own care. And reach out to your trusted colleagues, peers, or supervisors. There was a time when I called the NASW legal hotline and just was like, this feels unethical to me. I don't know what to do because the company I was working for um, was placing productivity over clients. And um, it was getting to the point where I was having to compromise my moral code and my ethical North Star. And it felt like it was impacting um, the reason that I was there, and the person actually gave me some really great advice, which is that if you're hired as a social worker who is licensed, that company is hiring you to follow the code of ethics because that is what we are held up against, the NASW code of ethics. And so if you feel like there's a conflict or there's the company is like not allowing you to do your job based on the code of ethics and like what you feel is right, that's literally what they hired you to do because they need a licensed social worker or they need somebody with an MSW. So kind of think of it that way, like especially in like the healthcare field, they're required to have somebody with a certain level of experience and professionalism for their, or like, credentialing, I guess, to meet the requirements set out by insurance companies and local and federal government. So if they're forcing you to act against those things, that's no good. Um, they're trying to compromise the code of ethics, which again, that's what we're held to. That's the standard we're held to. Um, During your initial meeting with a client, with a new person, or a new family, or whomever you're working with, definitely talk about what is and isn't reportable. So with kids and youth, you can talk about like in the terms of hypotheticals. So I have a friend who had a really rough week and mentioned that their friend was touching them inappropriately. You know, that would be like an instance that I would have to report, that kind of thing. So another thing too is you can always say, like, I'm going to stop you right there. Uh, what you're talking about right now sounds like something I would have to report as a mandated reporter. I know we've talked about that like when you first started with me here. but I want to double check and make sure that, you know, you're comfortable with proceeding telling the story, knowing that I might have to report it. And if so, if we want to do that together. So some recent examples from my work, I had a patient who I ended up having to report to the state because of self-neglect. Their family was not stepping in at all to help, and they were just like alone in their apartment. It was a senior living complex that had like pull cords on the wall and everything, but um, the gentleman like fell and was on the floor. I think it was like a day, like a full day, even though there was a pull cord like right behind him. He was refusing help. He was refusing all of those things. And, you know, autonomy is a piece of it, but at what point do people no longer have the capacity to make their own decisions, right? We want them to feel empowered to make their own choices, but also it was starting to impact our staff negatively because it was like every day we would have to go out. Um, we can also Oh, actually, there was a phone call that I did. That's what that was. So we were working with a hospital for folks who kind of pivoted very quickly from, you know, receiving active care into actively dying, which can be very, very difficult and sometimes traumatizing for family members and for the patients themselves. And so I had a phone call to somebody whose father passed away in the hospital and whose mother was still living with him. And he mentioned that sh he left her home alone for several hours at a time, and that she would set fires like by accident, like she left the stove on too long and all of that. And so I ended up having to do a report for that um, because of a safety issue, right? Like it was just, and I had never met these people. I literally just got it on a phone call. It wasn't even like I was asking those types of questions. I was just there to give him a heads up that our bereavement team would be reaching out and to check in on him. So yeah, it's, you can always ask somebody. I would say it's always better to err on the side of reporting than not reporting, but I know it's one of those weird, wonky things sometimes that feels like, is this enough to report? Is it not? Most of the time that I've reached out, people have also been super helpful. So you can always call instead of reporting online if you'd like, just to talk to somebody and be like, hey, I don't know if this is reportable or not. I'm pretty new to this. Can I tell you what I know? And then we go from there. Um, yeah, and use your colleagues, use your peers, use your faculty, you know, use your supervisors. Okay. So the information you want to collect and share when you are making a report is the name and address of whomever you're concerned about, a description of your concern. So if it's homicidal ideation, like kind of the specifics around that, if there's a specific person or entity that is at risk, and then you know, if it's suicidal ideation, that kind of thing, um, you know, the means, like whether there's a weapon in the home, the nature and extent of any known injuries. So if somebody reports to you that they became physically violent with somebody else, and details kind of what happened, definitely, you know, want to make sure you're conveying that information. The alleged perpetrator's name and contact information, if possible. How this is affecting the person you're concerned about, so the concerned party. Um, Information about that person, so the support system they have in place, their primary language, any cultural like significance as far as like support goes, or you know, whether or not uh, like there are particular strengths involved as well. Um, and then current safety concerns. So again, is there a weapon in the home? Have they expressed how they're going about doing things? That kind of thing. So the red flag laws in Colorado, this is a temporary confiscation of firearms from people who are deemed to be an extreme risk to themselves or to others. That's a CPR link to, I think it was back in 2023 or 2024, the article. it's requested by law enforcement or by a person's family members. So you file a petition with evidence, which must be brought before a judge within 1 business day. In order to file one of these, you can call Colorado's Extreme Risk Protection Hotline. I've got the number there. For general information on the process and available resources, the red flag is issued by a judge. If there's enough evidence, it can be up to 14 days, unless a second hearing extends it, which can lead to 364 days, so like a year. If there is determined to be enough evidence, the individual who has the red flag is required to surrender firearms to law enforcement, sell or transfer them through a federally registered firearm dealer, and surrender their concealed carry permit if they have it. In 2021, there were 151 orders, and this is at the bottom here is the link to the Department of Public Health's website that talks about the ERPO, yeah, regulations. Definitely double check your state if you're not in Colorado. I don't think Rhode Island has one of these. Massachusetts might, but yeah, double check for your state if you're not in Colorado. Documentation. So you're going to want a detailed record of the dialogue you had with the client and other support that was utilized during the interaction. So the exact date, time, and location of contact, like whether it was via phone. If it was via phone, you were in your office or at home and your client was where. There will be a record of the exact time and the exact length of the call on your phone when you disconnect, if you have a cell phone, so you can log into that or go into that record and be able to document that. You want to record all of your collaborative contact with supervisors, coworkers, consultants, the executive director of your program or what have you, crisis centers, hospitals, law enforcement. And I mean, that list is not extensive. So whomever you essentially did the disclosure with, or engaged with in supporting the client. You want, again, the exact date, time, and location of the interaction, and you want to provide a copy of this documentation to each person that you collaborated with to ensure accuracy and general record keeping. So ideally, they would have their own documentation, or you can both sign off on the same note. And this is CYA. This is totally covering your butt. You just want to make sure that in case somebody does end up going through with something, whether it's homicidal ideation or suicidal ideation, that you've covered your bases and done everything that you can in your work, and also have it documented, everything that you did, so that if something does happen, you've got the evidence to prove that you did everything you did. You want to show and demonstrate the work that you did. So proactive planning. Crisis can happen to anyone at any time. Nobody's exempt from self-harm, suicidal ideation, or homicidal ideation. We don't think of ourselves that way most of the time, but I think all of us have that capacity, right? There is My Safety Plan, which you can go to that link. The Wellness Recovery Action Plan is another option. So that's WRAP. That's linked there. And then there's also that concept of mandated supporting as opposed to mandated reporting. So you can see Canvas for information about that. There are different types of safety plans. Find what works for you, find what works for your client or makes sense for your client. Yeah. And know that, again, people have autonomy, people have the right to make choices, and people have the right to make bad choices, or what we would consider bad choices. So if somebody does have a moment where they are done, that isn't necessarily on you. That isn't necessarily on the team. Being a resource and making sure people are aware of the resources available to them and how to access them is your piece of the puzzle. helping to develop and implement a safety plan is your role, you know? Uh, Reporting when necessary and trying to be as collaborative with your client as possible when you have something that's mandated to be reported. That's all, that's all you, right? But part of the autonomy piece, and the empowerment piece is that clients make their own choices, you know? So some tips I wanted to give you. Um, I learned the HEAP model for de-escalation when I was in customer service. I worked at PNC Bank in the call center, and it can be very, very useful and applicable. The HEAP model for de-escalation is hear, empathize, apologize, and take ownership. This can probably be a little bit like morphed a little bit to make it a little more accessible to what we do, but like you want to hear and empathize with what everybody is feeling in their moment of crisis, right? You can apologize that they're experiencing this. Not that you did anything wrong necessarily, um, but that, you know, that systems have failed them, that the world is the way it is right now. Like, I'm so sorry that this is what you're experiencing and that it has led you to this feeling of hopelessness. And taking ownership, again, not taking their life into your hands, but taking ownership of making sure they have the resources they need, in order to make different choices if they choose. You want to stay calm. Don't match the other person's energy or their tone of voice. If you remain calm in like a non-condescending way, because that can also piss people off more. But if you remain calm and just, you know, in your body and just breathe through it, people generally calm down eventually once they feel heard and seen. You want to actively listen and validate their feelings if it seems appropriate. You don't want to validate feelings that are kind of like way out there or you know, you get what I'm saying. Definitely set boundaries. So again, I can provide resources, but these are the limitations of what I can do. You know, I have my office hours, and then this is what you do beyond those office hours, or that kind of thing. When they're open to hearing it, offer choices and solutions. Um, so, you know, different choices of how to proceed. You know, we could increase our sessions. We could have you find a group therapy that meets once a week, or um, you know, those kinds of things. People, when they're in their moment of crisis, aren't always open to hearing that, especially if they're angry. But you can offer those. Like, just again, our role as social workers is to present all of the options that are available to somebody so that they can make the choice that they feel is best. Um, and then also know when to disengage. This is hard, but know when you need to escalate something, know when you need to collaborate, know when you need to be like, I have I have done my part. I've taken ownership of the education piece, and now the client is not making progress or they're not making different choices, and I've reached the limit of what I can do, so I need to terminate services, that kind of thing. For a mental health crisis, you can call 988, or advise your client to call 988 to reach out to the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. Veterans, especially, you dial 988 and then press 1, or you can text the number there. Know your local resources, so your city, your county, your state. There's usually resources available, especially for different populations. Some specialized national resources. Again, I'm LGBTQ plus, so I always like to let people know that the Trevor Project is really a great resource, and To Write Love on Her Arms is also another one. Um, and if this is something that interests you or that you want more specific like training on, Mental Health First Aid offers free trainings. Some are virtual, some are in person. So you can go to their website. I've linked it there to kind of go through that. Some closing thoughts for you. Stuff is scary. Crisis can be scary. Crisis can be triggering. I always like, my motto is do what you got to do to get through. to the other side of this moment, this day, this minute, this feeling. Crisis is about getting to the other side of whatever this crisis is, and then you can kind of go from there. So we want to be dealing with the crisis in the moment and then move forward from that once we get past it. But the crisis trumps everything else. That becomes the number one thing. Take care of yourselves. Again, this is some pretty heavy stuff. So yeah, reach out to me, reach out to your peers, like let me know if you have any questions. And yeah, take it easy on yourself this week in particular, because this is some heavy stuff. Yeah. All right. Have a good rest of your week.